Another video. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video. I want you to leave a comment and share. And I'm going to get right to work before everyone gets there. This is a very important subject, and I'm doing a book review today on a book entitled The Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. So we're going to dive deep tonight. It'll be a very high-level conversation. It will be a talk that will reveal some truth from a psychological perspective. This is a book written by a woman by the name of Dr. Joy. And so I read this book probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I took some notes on this. I have about 4 or 5 pages of type notes that I plan to use tonight to discuss this and to hopefully give you some perspective, to give some truth. Truth is sometimes painful. And so the scripture says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. And so true friendship is a lot deeper than sitting down, having a meal, and having a time of food and fellowship. But it's more about having real dialogue, real conversation. And tonight is a great example of this. And so I'm going to get right to work. I won't waste any time. Let's begin by defining the word trauma. Trauma is an injury caused by outside, usually violent force, an event or an experience. Again, trauma is an injury caused by an outside, usually violent force or a event or an experience. An example of this can be parents who are not careful in the way they talk to their children. This will be a good example of that. And this can come across as disrespectful or humiliation. And this is something that I think African American parents have to really be careful with. And that is how we talk to our children. I see so often, mothers talking down on their sons and calling them little boy, come here little boy, and constantly for 15, 16 years, talking to them as if they're less than. And all you're doing is preparing them for a life of being disrespected, preparing them for a life of being treated as a second-class citizen, and not preparing them to be a strong and confident and assertive and dominant man. So the purpose of this book is written on page 10 of her book, and I'll read that. She says that the primary purpose of this book is to encourage African Americans to view their attitudes, assumptions, and behaviors through the lens of history to gain greater understanding of the impact that centuries of slavery and oppression have had on our lives. With this understanding, we can explore the role of our history has played in the evolution of our thoughts and feelings about who and what we are, as well as our beliefs about how we are to behave. While it is true that some of this evolution has resulted in behaviors that have become both destructive, it is also encouraging that in spite of the oppressive conditions our ancestors endured, they were able to pass on their phenomenal powers of resistance and adaptability. It is essential that we build upon these strengths in a way that will sustain and advance our future generations. In this way, we can begin to heal. And so I think it's very important that we learn to be resilient. Appreciate this, Sean. Thanks for the contribution to tonight's work. Thank you. Don't stop. Remain blessed. I appreciate that. Thank you for your kindness. I think 2 words here that I highlighted, and this is going to be a long talk. I might be here for about 2 hours, so if you can't be, well, at least an hour. This is going to be at least an hour talk, if not 2. So I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to try my best to articulate, and I think to give the proper respect to this work. Dr. Joy, from my understanding, spent 6 to 8 years studying African Americans and our behavior and our patterns. So this was a book that was well developed. And so I think it is worth me getting on camera, talking to my audience, and giving an intelligent assessment of this book. I think after hearing this talk, you'll want to read this book. You're going to buy it. And so I think it'll help you to heal and to give you perspective. Perspective is so important, So let's just begin by just acknowledging a truth and reality, and that is, it's difficult being a man of color anywhere in this world. Whether you are from America like myself, whether you are in Africa, whether you are in Canada. I was talking to a brother just a few days ago through on Instagram. By the way, follow me on Instagram at The King Jabez for those who haven't done that. And he messaged me and he was just sharing his experience in Canada. And I wish I had the notes before me right now. I would talk about that. And just how he has so many questions about why. Why does God allow us to experience some of the humiliation, some of the disrespect that we experience as men of color? And you wonder, like I have, and you have as well, why? And these questions that plague me, it pushed me to a path of self-discovery. So I began to read several books. I won't give you the list today, and I'll give you all my knowledge in one video. But I will say this. It led me to read a number of books and to begin to study and just to begin to really process what is happening to me in an intelligent way. And this is one of the books along that journey. So Dr. Joy, she was given a lecture at a school. This is an example. She's given a lecture at a school. And she was asked, she asked her audience, the African American people, how has racism had a negative impact upon you? And here was their response. She says that they were impacted economically through discriminatory hiring practices, limited health care, over-representation in the criminal justice system, and under-representation in the university systems, redlining, etc., right? So there were a number of ways that racism directly have a negative impact on the life of an African American, whether it be black or white. And by the way, this book was written from the perspective of African Americans, but I'm sure it will be an application for those of you who are from Africa, who are in Canada, those of you who may be in the UK. I know I have some followers who are people of color from the United Kingdom. And so though this is written directly to African Americans, I'm sure you'll be able to get a lot of insight from this as well to your own unique experience. And so she asked this question, and then she turned and she asked the same question to the white men and women in her audience. So she was giving this speech before both black and white people. And so the black people gave those answers. When she got to the white people, their response was silence. Think about that. In other words, she asked the white people audience the same question, and it was complete silence. While blacks may have been prejudiced towards white people, they didn't collectively have the capital or the power to affect the lives of white people. That's the difference. I want you to really, if you're taking notes, understand that. If a black person has a bias or a prejudice against a white person in America, 9 times out of 10, it's just his opinion. There's not much he can do about that. Whereas the flip side of the coin, the majority culture have the numbers, the status, the privilege, and other assets, wealth, and power to really bring harm to the family of an African American. And so there, in this particular context, gives some insight as to the distinction between racism and prejudice. If a person is prejudiced, they have an opinion, they have a disdain, they have a perspective, they have a stereotype, whereas racism, there's power behind it. So if I don't like you, I can now not hire you. I can put you in a position, in a location in a city or a state where it's not really a good place to live. I can mess up the school system. So there's a power behind racism, whereas with prejudice, it's an opinion. So there is a distinction between prejudice and a person having the power to inflict racism upon you. She makes that pretty clear from this lecture. Her definition of racism, and I'm going to read it from the book. Her definition of racism is the belief that people differ along biological, and genetic lines, and that one's own group is superior to the other group. These beliefs are coupled with and compounded by the power to negatively affect the lives. I just said that, right? So it's having the power to negatively affect someone's life and to limit the options of those perceived to be inferior. So for those of you who say racism doesn't exist, you are living in a fantasy world. You have no idea of the data, the facts that make that comment ridiculous. For those of you who say racism in America doesn't exist, the dehumanization, the black codes, convict leasing, Jim Crow, poverty, and so many other issues that have a negative impact upon African Americans prove that to not be true. And so what it is it's such an uncomfortable conversation People would much rather say it doesn't exist than to take the necessary steps to do something about the problem. So we think about learning, Black youth. I'm going to read something now from page 23 of the book. I'm going to read quite a few references from a book, since this is a book review. So on page 23, she talks about Black children in the school system. And this is something I pointed out too, which you didn't like, in the hip hop world. Biggie Smalls, back in the 90s, as well as Ellie Capone about 2014, both expressed in their rap music the bad experience that they had in the public school system. They call that the school to prison pipeline. And this is something that Dr. Umar Johnson has spoken about as a school psychologist, someone who works directly with kids in school. He has seen how this is a problem. And so she points out something here very profound in this particular page of the book concerning Black youth. And the reason that this is so important is that people often speak about the results. In other words, we like to focus on the fruit, and we don't want to deal with the root. We focus on the fruit, but not the root. We have a problem when a 16, 17, 18-year-old man, Black man in America, has a gun in his hand. We have a problem with that, but we seem to not have a problem with the mistreatment for the first 18 years of his life, being put into a bad school system, being in a community where there's very limited resources. No one has a problem with that. And so I call hypocrisy for anyone who has a problem with the boy with a gun in his hand, but has no problem with how he got the gun in the first place. If you have a problem with a young Black man in a gang, because so many of you claim to have a problem, you don't have a problem, it's just a reason for you to have excuses to have something to say, because it's easy to target that. If you have a problem with that, and you have no problem with those who distributed the guns and put it there in the first place, then I call you a hypocrite. She says in this book, Black parents sometimes find that their child is not performing academically up to his or her potential and is receiving unacceptable grades. When asked by their parents why they are receiving only a C, the Black child may often respond, "It's because my teacher doesn't like me." This is something that a lot of Black children have said to their parents. My teacher does not like me. Little kids have intuition that God has given them. And when you are 6 years old, when you are 10 years old, when you are 14 years old, you can tell when an adult does not have your best interest at heart. You have common sense. You have that. And so unfortunately, African American children are often treated with disdain upon entering an elementary school, middle school, or high school. Let me read that again. African American children are often treated with disdain upon entering an elementary school, a middle school, or a high school. On numerous occasions, I have observed that the individual, this is interesting, assigned to the front desk is often the most hostile and bitter member of the school staff. But for the Black children, in my experience, in love's absence, those material types of rewards do not work very long as an effective motivation. And so she points out very clearly that so many Black youth struggle in school. It isn't because they're unintelligent. They can see that these people teaching them don't really care about them. And that's something you can't hide that. You can fake for so long before everyone knows that you are phony. Just like so many of you have followed me for close to 3 years, and you want to call me brother, and God bless you, and I appreciate you, and all this fluff for 200-300 videos, and I begin to speak about how Black men like myself are treated in this country in silence. I see right through you. And it's not something that surprises me, because I'm the same man who worked for an organization for close to 10 years. And once I began to speak out against police brutality and other issues that negatively impact Black men, silence. So there is an evil within this country that refuses to have these types of conversations. We could talk about drugs, we could talk about gangs, we could talk about unemployment, But as soon as you begin to speak out against the brutality that black men face, silence, like right now tonight. Hypocrisy. Now, if I was on here right now talking about semen retention, I'll have 2,000 views. Fake. And I know I can see right through you. Moving along. How do you learn the world? Will be the next question. Learning the world through reasoning, observation, calculation, the five senses, and this is a way that any person, any child, any human begins to observe their world and create their worldview. Slavery. It is estimated that 20 to 30 million people were captured and transported from 1500 to 1808. During that time, 20 million to 30 million Africans were transported in the transatlantic slave trade. Blacks were sold into slavery by other blacks. But there's something in this particular truth that needs to be revealed. Yes, it is true on one hand that other black people from other tribes, Africa was very tribal in those days, probably still is today, and they sold these blacks into slavery. Let me give you some insight into this from this book, because that was something that a student I went to school with revealed to me, or spoke to me about. It says that the black Africans sold other black Africans to slavery. It is well known, and it is often offered as a rationalization by apologists for the institution of slavery. So you have a racist will say something like, well, your own people sold you into slavery. Thank you for that. Long-time listener, we should be supportive of your message. Appreciate that. Much love and respect for your message. So the black Africans sold other black Africans to slavery. It is well known. And it is offered as a rationalization by apologists for the institution of slavery. This has led to significant misunderstanding regarding the role of Africans, right, in the slave trade. When enemy tribes in Africa made war, the conqueror took the prisoners and made them what we call indentured servants. With the coming of the European slavers, warriors could be sold in an effort to reduce the enemy tribe's warring force. So what would happen is there were tribal wars in Africa, of course, and if one tribe conquered another tribe, they became their servants. So when the Europeans came to Africa to get these slaves and they sold these men, they assumed that they would just be treated as indentured servants. They had no idea that they would be treated with such gross inhumane activity. They had no idea that the women would be raped and that the men would be beaten and castrated and hung and lynched. And they didn't know, they knew it would be bad, obviously, but they had no idea the extent of the evil. And this is something that is never articulated. And to be honest, this is something I learned from me. This was new to me. I didn't know this. This was new knowledge to me. I kind of had a problem, to be honest, as an African American, thinking, you know what, you're right. Some of these guys sold us to slavery. But even with that, and now that I have that knowledge and framework, it makes more sense now. These were servants that had lost a battle, and this happened often in ancient Israel, to be honest, and you became the servants. Even in the days of Joshua, the man of God, the Hebrew. One of the Hebrews, rather. So that's nothing new. But what was new was the level of cruelty, the level of just dehumanization. And this is kind of pointed out and articulated in this next point, the extent of this. Give me a second to get myself together. According to some people, Africans were fitted for slavery. I want you to hear this. I want you to see the logic that was used to justify this evil. The logic and the doctrine, I guess you can say, language that was used to really justify such an inhumane act. Listen to this. Of the greater import is that the American slavery experience was based exclusively on the notion or idea, I know what it means, of racial inferiority. According to Thomas D. Morris in the Southern Slavery and Laws, 1619 to 1860, Africans were considered to be, or presumed, or natural slaves. Listen to this. Based on their skin color. They were also referred to as thinking property. Huh. Can you imagine that? Thinking property. Like, this is my property, this is my house, I'm teaching it right now. This is my artwork, I bought that. This is my chair, this is property. So they were referred to humans as thinking property. I want you to process this. And inherently rightless persons. In few societies, if any, were so large a group of people considered to be less than human, based upon physical experience. Yet the Europeans concluded that black Africans were fitted by a natural act of God. Here we go. To the position of permanent bondage. Let me manifest real quick. Let me manifest. This is still happening to this day when there are those certain people who use the Bible and God to justify your sin. And that's something that is such a black eye to biblical Christianity. I am for biblical Christianity, but I am against what it has become in many ways here in America. Let me say that as clear as possible. I am for what the Bible calls Christianity, but I am against what has become, in many cases in America, nothing more than the Christian KKK. I'm going to just call it spade a spade. I'm going to call it what it is. I'm not going to bite my tongue. I don't care if you don't like me. I'm not here to have friends at this point. Obviously, I'm here to give the truth. I realize this type of conversation is going to be very unpopular, uncomfortable, and I'm going to put my big blonde underwear on and sit in this chair and say what I believe to be the truth. So many Christians are nothing more than racists hiding behind Jesus. You can't hide your racism behind Jesus. You cannot hide your feminist agenda in many of these black churches behind Jesus. And this is why so many men in particular, black men, don't take the church serious. It's like a joke. Why do you think so many black churches are primarily women? Because many of these so-called ministers don't have a backbone that is necessary to teach African American men in this country. And they have no courage or concern enough to speak on the difficult conversations such as the one we're having tonight. So these are not the type of messages you hear in churches. People like to live in a fantasy world. This is what happens often in America. We like to live in this fantasy world, and when you don't want to live there with them, this has been my experience. And this is many black people too, by the way. A lot of black people, you're part of the problem because you're too passive and weak mentally to really address this type of conversation. You much rather sit back and play games. And the problem with this is that you are aiding and assisting your own second-class citizenship. You are aiding and assisting your own unofficial second-class citizenship in this country by being passive about your own disrespect, your own mistreatment. You know what time it is. But you choose to ignore it and play crazy because you don't have the courage to stand your ground. So how this works, you go into a place of business. Let me give you an example since y'all want to play crazy. Like you don't know what time it is. You know exactly what time it is. I'm going to wake you up since you want to be asleep. You go into a place of business and you're being watched like you're a dog. You go to a bank, you go to a grocery store, you go to a gas station, and people are acting uncomfortable because they are afraid of the black guy. Right? You feel that. And so what you do is, because you feel that, you now feel like it's your job to start tap dancing and butt kissing and butt shaking to make people feel comfortable. So you go right into your cooning because you feel that energy. You feel that you are being stared at. You feel that distrust they have for you. And so now you feel like it's your job to remove that by butt kissing and butt dancing and shaking your feet and shuffling your feet and whatnot. So you start smiling and grinning when nothing's funny. Because you don't have enough courage. I'm giving what I think it is. This is my opinion now. You don't have enough courage. You don't have enough self-respect to leave that awkwardness there. That's what I do now. If I go into a room and you are treating me, this is me, you can do what you want to do, with disrespect, you are treating me with disdain, you are subtly dehumanizing me. If you are doing that without even knowing me, it is not my responsibility to remove that. I don't think so. If it is awkward, I'm going to keep this as awkward as possible. I want you to be uncomfortable. I want you to feel, what Tupac say? I want you to feel me. If you are being rude and you are manifesting false humility, go study that. You are manifesting microaggression. I studied all this stuff because I want to understand what's going on. You see? I didn't pull this talk out my backside. I researched and studied this stuff for years. This came from a place. This ain't no half now. This is a 4 or 5 hour study I'm giving you tonight, guys. This is a lecture. So I studied this stuff for hours trying to get language to understand what is going on. What Marvin Gaye say? What's going on? This don't make no sense. I'm coming to a store to buy a bag of potato chips, and you watch me like I'm the boogeyman. Looking all scared and nervous, and now you feel like it's my job to make you comfortable. No, it's not. I'm not no slave. I ain't got to make you comfortable. You're making me uncomfortable. Why would I make you comfortable if you're making me uncomfortable? So what I do is I stand my ground. I remain calm. I don't start frowning. I'm not going to frown at you. I'm not going to frown or smile. I'm going to keep a poker face. I know how to be nice. I know how to be kind. But if you're giving me this bad energy, it is not our responsibility to humanize myself. You have already dehumanized me, and it's not my job to now make you feel comfortable. No, leave that tension right there. I want you to feel this for an hour and a half while I'm around you. That's the way it goes. But what many of us do is we play the game. And you start speaking, looking at your feet, putting your head down. You begin to smile in a way to show, hey, I am a human. You don't have to be afraid of me. You got to now prove your humanity. No, you don't. Stop doing that stuff, man. That's weak. Stop proving your humanity. Stop letting people dehumanize you and you basically sit there as a buffer against yourself. Get a backbone, man. Have some respect for yourself, brother. I'm not telling you to be rude, but have some respect for yourself. Excuse me. That's why people don't respect you. If you don't respect yourself, how do you expect somebody to respect you? If someone is clearly treating you with disdain and disgust and disrespect, what do you look like as a man being okay with that? You shouldn't be. So let's talk about history for a second. Thomas Jefferson. This is what Thomas Jefferson, one of the good old forefathers, had to say about African Americans. Ready for this one? Thomas Jefferson had notes on black people. He says, this is just one quote among 1,000 others. They smelled bad and were physically unattractive, required less sleep, were dumb, cowardly, and incapable of feeling grief. I gotta laugh at that. That's just so ridiculous. I gotta laugh at that. This is Thomas Jefferson said. He said that we were dumb, required less sleep, cowardly, incapable of feeling grief. How? How in the world are we incapable of feeling grief? If we were so dumb, how do we build this country for free? I mean, how do we build a country you didn't pay us for if we were so stupid? And Thomas Jefferson, I can't tell we're dumb. As many black women as he was in bed with, we dumb until we want to have sex with one of them black women. He had black women, they were tearing them black women up in slavery days. So for us to stink and be unattractive, I cannot tell. You know how many black women were getting molested and raped during the days of slavery? So again, here is another example among millions of just flat out hypocrisy and lies. We unattractive. But every time I look up, you're in bed with a black woman. You're a liar. You're a hypocrite. And so just the dehumanization or the demonization of the black man's sexuality. That's my next piece here. The dehumanization of the black man's sexuality. Y'all ready for this one? The fear of the black male's sexuality was the repeated theme that found its way into the mass media with the airing of the movie, The Birth of a Nation. This is something that has not changed one bit. There is still this lie that the media and movies and music push by portraying the black man as the sexual predator. So every time we look up at a woman, we want to have sex with her. We're just these animals. And it's crazy. The crazy thing about that, where do I start? You want to portray a black man as a sexual predator. This is in slavery days. When y'all was raping black women. Come on, man. That don't even make sense. Y'all was tearing black women up by force, and then you had the audacity to paint the picture of the black man as a sexual predator. And all that did was create this environment for vilification. So when you see a black man, you have all of this negativity in your mind. This is why black men, when some white women see you, they think you want to get married with them. Listen to me. I'm trying to teach you something. This is why I don't smile. This is why, me personally, I don't smile at white women. You're not going to lie on me. I don't want you. So it's embarrassing how some of you guys fall into that trap. It's embarrassing. You don't know your history at all. And so there has been this consistent 400-year narrative that black men are just these sexually impure beings. And sometimes music feeds right into that. And what it is another way of undermining the humanity and the manhood of the black man. So if I can convince people that this guy is impure, that he is stupid, that's what that's all about. That's another one. A lot of people think black men are dumb. I had people in school, this was so crazy about this. Here I was in college with people getting better grades than them. And they had the nerves to act like I was dumb. So you want to talk to me like I'm unintelligent in school. This is in college. And I'm getting better grades than you. Right? We're reading the same books. I'm getting basically almost all A's and B's. Ain't never been no dummy. But because I'm a black guy, you got in your mind that somehow I'm intellectually inferior to you. And this is something that has been a consistent theme since 1619. That's why when you're on a job and people are talking to you like you're stupid, that's where that comes from. So the best way to deal with that is to educate yourself. But I'm getting ahead of myself because I'll get into the hill and the end. We'll get there in about a half an hour. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is just the intro, to be honest. This is the intro. Let's talk about lynching for a second. You guys all right? Lynching, it has been estimated that between 1866 to 1955, more than 10,000 African Americans were lynched. From 1866 to 1955, more than 10,000 African Americans have been hung on a tree, according to history research. Andrew Hacker had a book, or I think it was a documentary, that was entitled Two Nations, Black and White, Separate and Hostile and Unusual. He articulates the social condition of America in this piece. He says it this way: America is inherently a white country in character, in structure, and in culture. Needless to say, Black Americans create lives of their own, yet as a people, they face boundaries and constrictions set by the white majority. And to make that even plain, and to say it in plain English, basically, there's a culture created in this country where you basically are told indirectly, unofficially, stay in your place, black man. And that's what's happening on a daily basis. Let's talk for a second about a book that's entitled The New Jim Crow. A book entitled The New Jim Crow. This was written by an attorney named Michelle Alexander, and I'm going to read a part of that from this book, The New Jim Crow. She says, still, some of us are convinced that African Americans are simply more criminal. A lot of you black people think that too. You've been brainwashed. A lot of you black people have that same colonized mind too, to be honest. You're part of the problem. Which accounts for their increased numbers in jail and prison. Attorney Michelle Alexander, in her 2010 book, this is written by a lawyer, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness provides us with demographic and clarity on the subject. In some states, black men have been admitted to prison on drug charges at rates 50 times greater than those of white men. And in the majority cities racked by drug war. As many as 80% of young African American men now have criminal records and are thus subject to legalized discrimination for the rest of their lives. These young men are part of a growing undercaste, permanently locked up and out of mainstream society. They are stark racial disparities, cannot be explained by rates of drug crime. Studies show that people of all colors use and sell illegal drugs at a remarkably similar rate. If there are significant differences in surveys to be found, they frequently suggest that whites, particularly white youth, are more likely to engage in drug crime than people of color. This has been documented and studied. So according to research by an attorney, white youth are more likely to engage in drug crime than people of color. And what happens is crack cocaine is punished much more harsher than the use of powder cocaine. So I guess powder cocaine is more righteous in the eyes of God. Now, I'm just saying, I guess that's what they're thinking. Extreme sarcasm with that last statement. Let's talk now about a police officer. Here was a police officer who served on the police force for 34 years. 34 years. Here's what he had to say about law enforcement. This is not my opinion. This is not coming from Honor Soul. It's not coming from me because you're trying to diminish that. This is coming from a white man who served on the law enforcement, for over 30 years. Here's what he had to say. He had a book, or has a book rather, that's entitled Breaking Rank. This is Norm Stamper. Norm Stamper, I'm going to read from the book, is a white, 34-year veteran police officer who served as the chief of police for the cities of Seattle and San Diego, has a unique insight into the criminal justice system. In 2005, he wrote a book entitled Breaking Rank. I haven't read the book yet. I'm going to read it, of course, at some point. I'll probably do a review on that one too in the future. But I'm sure many of you will be going by then because you're not liking this at all. In which he exposed what he described as an inherently racist and hopelessly flawed criminal justice system. He carefully details how he and his fellow officers were trained in the police academy to view black men as being their major threat and enemy. Stamper devotes 2 chapters to racism. Why white cops kill black men. This is the cop saying this. This is his book, not me. 2 chapters he had developed to racism. One chapter was entitled Why White Cops Kill Black Men, and the other chapter was entitled Racism in the Ranks. You can't blame this on rappers. You know, we like to blame everything on rappers now. You know, that's what a lot of you cowards do. Every time something bad happens, blame a rapper or a gang member. The gang members in Chicago in New Orleans and San Francisco or wherever, they're the cause of everything bad in the black community. So you can't blame this on that one. That's not at all what the police officer is saying. Because many of you like to hide behind that. You like to use rappers and gang members as your shield against your cowardice and your lack of testicular fortitude to stick up for yourself and people who look like you. He explains what is motivating white police officers to single out black men for deadly force. He says it this way. Simply put, white cops are afraid of black men. This was a 34-year police officer saying this. Can't blame this on Lil Baby now. Can't blame this on Lil Wayne. Can't blame this on Gunner or Young Thug or any other rapper. Can't blame this on rap. Can't blame this on the gang now. You quiet now. You gonna blame this on this rapper fault too, huh? This is also the fault of Lil Baby or Lil Durk or Young Boy. NBA Young Boy, you heard me? That's his fault too, right? No, it's not, coward. Listen to what this man says. We don't talk about it. We pretend it doesn't exist. That's what you guys do. You play crazy. We claim color blindness. We say that white officers treat black men the same way they treat white men. But that's a lie. This is what he's saying. In fact, the bigger, the darker the black man is, the greater the fear. The African American community knows this. Heck, most white know this as well. Yet, even though it's central, it's if not the defining ingredient in the makeup of police racism. White cops won't admit to this themselves or to others. So the fear that this officer describes, however, cannot fully explain the dehumanizing remarks that he documented as a police chief, not just a 2-year cop, as a chief. He documented this stuff. Show you how God works. This is how God works. God is not to be played with. He allowed this man to be at the top of the force. You hear me? To see this. And he had the balls. You know what type of balls it took for this white man to say this? He had nothing to gain from saying this, bro. So I give this white man his flowers. He has some balls to say this, bro. Wouldn't nobody finna back him for saying this? He wouldn't get no pat on back from nobody for saying this. But as a human, he realized, I got to say something. This is not right. You understand? That's what a man does. As a man, he realized, this ain't cool. You dig? He said this, I've heard some police officers refer to prostitute slayings or the slayings of blacks as misdemeanor murders, employing an unofficial code for them, NHI, no human involved. Selah. He exposed the many comments made by officers during his tenure in San Diego. San Diego cops confessed to a myriad of other acts of discrimination, including additional dehumanizing references to blacks on the radio call, just an 1113 nigger. N-I-G-G-E-R. There's a difference between nigger and nigga. It's a difference. 1113 being code for an injured animal, followed by nigger. So 1113 was code for an injured animal nigger. This is what police officers were saying about some black men in San Diego. Things to make you say, Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're uncomfortable, aren't you? You ready to run. Don't run. I don't hear you talking, now you let them say no, do you? Of course you know. Because you're going to do what you always do. You're going to do what you always do when truth comes out. You're going to play dumb, you're going to remain silent, and continue to live your life and talk about God. That's what you're going to do. You're going to do absolutely nothing. But I've given this talk for the purpose of those who need to hear this message to give perspective and to give some insight for your life, right? So, for those who think that this is an isolated incident, that's what we always say whenever something is uncomfortable. Oh, it's just an isolated incident. That happened once. You know, it just happened recently in Mississippi, where the police chief had to resign in Mississippi. You know, good on down south. They going crazy down there. You know, that's been messed up, but that's another conversation in itself. And he resigned because he was caught on, I think, either his phone or camera or whatever, saying all this racist stuff about black people. And this happened with some cops in another city too. This keeps coming out because of cell phones and everything's being recorded, the truth is coming out, and you can't hide anymore. Here is something I think is of value to this same conversation. The response to an unarmed black man versus an armed white man. How were armed white men treated versus unarmed black men? You ready for this one? Unarmed black men shot and killed Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Timar Rice, Walter Scott, who was a 50-year-old man, Freddie Gray, were all unarmed black men who were killed by the police. Armed white men arrested without incident. James Holmes, the crazy guy that attacked in a movie theater, killed 12 people and injured 70 people. Went to jail without a scratch on him. With a gun on him. Okay? So this guy killed 12 people, injured 70, and he went to jail uninjured. Dylan Roof, the church demon. That's what I'm going to call him, the church demon. Attended a prayer meeting and killed 9 black people in the church. Was treated to Burger King on his way to the police station. So after this crazy guy kills 9 black people in the church, of all places, shows you how demonized he was. Not only did he leave there alive with a gun on him, but he also was given a meal at Burger King's. So they took him to Burger King, gave him a burger. Gave him some fast food. So this is what we see. This is not my opinion. This is a fact. This is what is happening. We are seeing examples of unarmed black men being murdered in cold blood, game over, and we're seeing some armed white men with guns on them going to the police station untouched, eating Burger King. And you want to talk that stuff to me about some doggone racist doesn't exist. Keep telling yourself that. That's what I'll tell you. Keep telling yourself that. And for you black people to say that, you sound like a fool. You sound like a fool if you say that. Let's now talk about the theory she has, or the statement, post-traumatic slave syndrome. Environment can affect our genes and trauma can be transmuted over generations. This is how she came up with this idea. African Americans communities are made up of individuals who collectively share differential anxiety and adaptive survival behaviors passed down from prior generations of black folks, many of whom likely suffer from PTSD. So what I get from that, what that means to me, from my understanding of that, is that black people, there is a such thing as generational trauma, generational curses. The same energy that my grandfather experienced, let's say for example, 50 years ago, I'm experiencing that now in my age. The same traumas that I experienced as a boy in the public school system, I am now seeing my sons experience some of the very same things. So I'm looking at this as an intelligent person, as you can tell, listen to me, as an intelligent person, ain't much changed. And this is even clearer. By the way, for those of you who follow me, it's going to get extremely uncomfortable over here. My next talks will be about Dr. King, Malcolm X, and Jay-Z's Decoded. I'm coming with straight bangers, so get your seatbelt ready. Put your seatbelt on, let's get hot over here. And so from my reading of Dr. King's book, but also Malcolm X, and I'll get to that in a few days, not much has changed. When you read the autobiography of Malcolm X. It's almost like reading today's newspaper, which tells me, as an intelligent human being, not much has changed. What has changed now in 2022 is the sophistication of racism. So it hasn't changed. They're more sophisticated in their approach in some cases. So as opposed to having a building that says whites only, which is obvious, they'll now just put red tape around the building. It's called redlining. So instead of making it obvious, we just do it subtly now. But everyone knows what time it is. Everyone knows what is a predominantly white community versus a predominantly black community. So there's no sign saying whites only or blacks not allowed, but you get it through the red tape that is there invisibly. Okay? So not much has changed. The only thing that's changed now is it's a little more subtle in some cases. In some cases, not subtle at all. So we're almost an hour in. Let's get to what is post-traumatic slave syndrome. What is post-traumatic slave syndrome? Post-traumatic slave syndrome, according to Dr. Joy, is multi-generational trauma together with continued oppression and the absence of opportunity to access the benefits available in a society led to post-traumatic slave syndrome. That is the name of the book. And so, based on what we talked about so far in the last hour, as we go to this, getting close to the second hour, I'm going to give you the complete teaching here. We're going to now add some teeth to this teaching. What does this mean? What does this mean? The result is this. 3 categories. She broke this up into 3 categories to explain her concept of post-traumatic slave syndrome. She called it, number 1, vacant esteem. Number 2, ever-present anger. And number 3, a racist socialization. So we have vacant esteem, an ever-present anger, and a racist socialization. 3 things here. And so this is kind of giving teeth to her concept of the post-traumatic slave syndrome. Okay, let's get comfortable here for this part 2 of this message. Vacant esteem, ever-present anger, and the racist socialization. So what is the result of all of the bigotry, the at times racism, the microaggressions that we face as people of color? The first thing she mentions here is something that she refers to as vacant esteem. She says that vacant esteem is the state of believing oneself to have little or no worth, which is similar to the pronouncements of inferiority from the personal sphere in large society. Right? So let's look at this, her commentary on this, to get some more clarity. I'm going to look at this real quickly. She says, African Americans have been and continue to be disproportionately represented in our institutions. African Americans often live in neighborhoods where schools are functionally segregated and lack adequate revenue to sustain them, which aka poorly funded schools and limited opportunities. That's the ghetto, by the way. That's the trap, which is what they call it. They call it a trap. That's what it is. Duh, it's a trap. In African American communities, banks charge higher interest rates on homes and auto loans. These are documented facts. It's not opinion. For you people who say this doesn't exist, you're lying to yourself. As well as make it more difficult for African Americans to get small business loans. So what does this have to do with having low self-esteem. If you are consistently treated poorly, if you are not a strong person, you will think something's wrong with me. It has to be. If I am consistently being disrespected, if I am consistently being pushed to the side, then logic says in your mind, something's wrong with me. There has to be some type of problem I have that I have to be less than. And this leads to a lot of black people becoming confused. And it leads them to going in a path where they begin to try to embrace white culture, and they begin to act as if they're not African American. So they do everything they can to escape this reality. And it can lead to mental illness. It can lead to a breakdown. And so when you have low self-esteem, when you don't know who you are, then you are easily controlled and manipulated. And this is one reason why a number of black people feel some type of way when they see another black person doing better than them. She talks about this as well. This is why some black people feel some type of way when they are not achieving the same goals in life as a black person they perceive to be successful. Okay, what do I mean by that? Let's talk about this on page 110 of this book. She says, another indication of vacant esteem is the effort to undermine the achievements of other African Americans. We all know that by this phrase, crabs in a barrel. Whether we're talking about the youth in school or adults in professional world, there are those who seek to bring down those who look like them. And this is an issue we have within the black community. This jealousy we have for each other. This desire to one up the next black person. And this is why rappers, by the way, are targeted in their own communities. Because they are in a community where people who know them, who grew up with them, are not doing as well in life as they are right now. And this can lead to a place of jealousy, sabotage, and cruelty. And this is why you have to be careful often with those of you who hear this message in your own race. Because so much of this poison of racism, white supremacy, and black cruelty, it poisons the mind of a lot of black people. And this leads to them being jealous, hateful towards other blacks, not supporting what you got going on, trying to undermine and to sabotage your work. And this is something you have to look out for if you're trying to make progress, if you're trying to prosper in life. And this leads to the next point she refers to as ever-present anger. And this is such an important thing to understand. The post-traumatic slave syndrome leads to what she refers to as this ever-present anger. What does that mean? If you're not careful, if you don't notice this, there are a lot of black people, this is towards other black people. They have this animosity, this rage, there's like this volcano in them that's ready to erupt in any moment. And this rage, this anger, comes from a place of hurt, disrespect. You see, if you're not careful, another black person can really hurt you. And this is based on their own experience in life. It's as if there is a wellspring of anger, this is Dr. Joy talking, that lies just below the surface of many African Americans. And it doesn't take much for it to emerge and to be expressed. We call that turning up. Man, if you're not careful, man, a black man, black woman will just turn up on you out of nowhere. You having a conversation, next thing you know, they're ready to fight. You're like, man, where did that even come from? You feel me? It's what she refers to as this ever-present anger. And she's going to define where this anger comes from. It seems to be especially true for black men. This ever-present anger is one of the most pronounced behaviors associated with the post-traumatic slave syndrome. Now, Many of you say, that's right, black men are angry. Get them. You're missing the point. This anger or rage comes from a place. Listen to this. Dr. James R. Samuels, this is a doctor saying this, explains it this way. In its simplest form, anger is the normal emotional response to a blocked goal. Often, if a person's goal remains blocked over time, they will begin to consider the possibility of failure and so experience fear. And when we are fearful, we also lash out in anger. So that provides some context to the statement. This struggle with this idea of ever-present anger, it comes from consistently having your goals blocked, from being red-lined out of a community, from being put into a box where you are in a school with very limited resources, being put into a community that is full of crack and guns and abandoned buildings, living in a world where you're constantly being told, no, you are less than. And this can lead to anger. This can lead to suicidal thoughts. This can lead to self-hatred. There are many African-American men, and many of you hearing this, you struggle with, I'm talking to black men right now in this part, you struggle with self-hatred. And this is why when a black man sees another black man, and there's this anger there, there's this wall, this animosity, you're looking at your other self. That's what the word brother means. It means your other self. So when you look at your other self, you see another black man, and you instantly have this animosity, this jealousy, this hatred. What does that say about what you think about yourself? I don't want you to give me an answer online. I don't want to hear your answer online. I want you to think about what this says about you. If you see another black man and you're angry, you have an animosity, that means you have been conditioned to hate yourself. You have been thoroughly trained and brainwashed by white supremacy. They got you. When you see your brother or other self, there should be a level of camaraderie. There should be a level of understanding. There should be a level of grace. I know what you're going through as a black man. I'm a black man. So as a fellow black man, knowing what you are going through, why wouldn't I show you grace? Why wouldn't I talk to you like I got some sense? Why would I disrespect you when I know you are experiencing disrespect on a daily basis? That's just the way it is. If you are a black man in America, you are experiencing disrespect on some level every single day. So you have to be aware of that and not manifest self-hatred and not manifest jealousy or strife, but manifest self-control, a level of courage, a level of understanding, a level of love, to be honest. And that would be much more helpful. But that's easier said than done. Ever-present anger, according to this book, is the anger that comes from our hopes and dreams consistently being undermined. So now let's talk about a racist socialization. This is the third part of this process. You have ever-present anger, vacant esteem, and a racist socialization. This happens when you get to a place in your thought process when you think that everything white is good and everything black is bad. When you begin as a black, if you as a black person, this is who it's talking to. If you think that everything black is bad and everything white is good, congratulations, you have been brainwashed. You have been colonized in your mind and in your thinking. And a lot of you are like that. A lot of you right now, I know you don't like this, especially when you hear this, you're sitting there mad right now because I'm busting you out. You have been so brainwashed by white supremacy in the media, indoctrinated and taught that you think everything black is ghetto or bad. And that white is right or good. This means that you have been conditioned. You have been trained to hate yourself. This right here is why some of my so-called followers have called me arrogant. I know I call me arrogant. I'm not an arrogant person. You call me arrogant because you can perceive that I have self-respect. I respect my culture. I respect my background, who I am. I'm proud to be an African American. I'm not ashamed to be black. I'm proud to be what God has made me. And so because I have a level of respect for that, and I'm not ashamed of who I am, I'm not walking around as if I don't know who I am, that irritates you because you have in your mind placed me in this unofficial second-class citizenship where I need to be taught. I need to be kept in my place. And when I don't like that, and I stand my ground as a man, then your perception is now, oh, this guy's arrogant. Who does he think he is? And this is why people call LeBron James arrogant, but they don't call Tom Brady arrogant. This is why people call LeBron James arrogant, but they don't call Tom Brady arrogant. Why? Because it's okay and expected of Tom Brady to have respect for himself and confidence and even a level of arrogance. But when LeBron does it to black men, how dare you, nigga? That's the message. And I get that from my TV at home, crystal clear. So, moving along. She then asked the question, in light of all this, who are we? Right? That's a question we have to ask ourselves as African Americans. Who am I? Based on that level of lost identity. Not really being connected to Africa, and quite frankly, not really being connected to America. We are African Americans, but to a certain degree and to a certain level, we're not really welcome in either country. In either, well, I know Africa is a continent. I know that because it's not a country, it's a continent. I know that. I got 3 degrees. I know that. But anyway, I don't know what a continent is. Teach it in grade school. Anyway, we're not welcome in that continent, and we're not really welcome in our own homeland. So there is a level of lost identity that many of us struggle with. That's the reality. That don't make you less than. That's the truth. So because we don't know, most of us at least, I don't know, which tribe I'm from, because when we were in Africa, we weren't from the same tribe. Obviously, different countries, different tribes and cultures. And we don't know that. That's even when you think about something like as simple as men having braids and dreadlocks. That's African culture. Braids has become in this country the hairstyle of a thug or an entertainer in the minds of many people. That's why I let my hair grow, by the way, close to 3 years. What am I doing? I'm embracing that aspect of my African culture and roots. I know that I am an African who lives in America. I don't have to get a haircut to look professional to you. I'm proud to be who I am. So because of that, I made a decision, a conscious decision, right, to grow my hair out, to embrace that part of my roots. This is why tattoos are so popular in Africa. Tattoos were used to mark certain tribes. They looked at your tats and they knew you were from this tribe and you were from that tribe. This is why gold chains are very popular in African culture. So when you see the rappers with tattoos and gold chains and braids and dreadlocks, you think in your mind, thug. And the reason you think that, because you have been brainwashed to believe that. That's your problem. But what it is it's a part. Now, I know it's not the full story, obviously. It's much deeper than that. That's common sense and logic. but that is a part of our African culture. So who are we? Right? At one time, we have been considered chattel, and at another time, slaves. We have been indentured servants, and we have been sharecroppers. We have been called darkies. I mean, just all this just humiliating stuff. Darkies, niggers, negros, negroes, colored, black, Afro-American, nigger, and most recently, African-American. I guess that was supposed to be something I could be proud of. Which really, to a degree, in my opinion, I think I'm just thinking out loud now, African-American, okay, it's reminding me of two things. One, I don't know much about when I'm even from Africa, for one. It reminds me of that. It also reminds me of how I'm being treated in this country. So when you hear African-American, there's automatically creates this feeling in you. This void. You understand? And we try to fill that void with many things. And it's such a complex and multi-layered reality, which is why there are hundreds of books, by the way. This is just one book. Let me put that out there. This is just one book. Before someone comes to the comment section and tell me what I left out, common sense. This African-American culture and history can't be explained in a 2-hour life. That's why they have volumes of books to discuss this. This is just one conversation among many others. But with that being said, we have a void that will only be filled through deep study, research, gaining a true knowledge of self, and making a decision to learn and to renew our minds. Let's talk about for a second the media. The media demon. The talking heads. There's a bunch of talking heads that just fill people's heads with all this venom and poison. The media are vehicles that convey images and the words to the masses. They control how the communications will be displayed, as well as whom and what will be depicted. The media are and have been a powerful tool in shaping the public perception of individuals and specific groups. They market what is acceptable and unacceptable to their consumers, guided by their stakeholders, and more significantly, their stockholders. So you think about this, the media does a very good job of painting African Americans a certain way. The media does a very good job of painting African Americans a certain way. For example, something bad happens in the ghetto. What I have noticed is that they often find the most ignorant black person they can find. If you're here, hit the like button, by the way. I see y'all here. Hit that like button, leave a comment if you're truly a supporter. If you're a truly a supporter, hit the like button so that other people can see this video. So the media often will find the most ignorant person they can find in the ghetto. Well, something happens because that person can be utilized to further paint this picture of black people as stupid, unintelligent, and not able to articulate themselves in a way that is respected by regular people. And so the media often uses its power to influence the masses to have this perception of black people that may or may not be true. So much so that if you tell someone you're from Chicago, they are surprised when you have a level of education, intelligence, common sense, and giftedness about yourself. People ask me all the time, have I been to the military? No, I haven't. I've been to the military. And what they're saying is they see that I'm poised, disciplined, serious. There's a level of honor about myself. And this honor and discipline didn't come from the military. It came from the Most High God. If you want to give me a title, I keep telling you guys, I'm not a pastor. Quit calling me that. I'm not a pastor. Stop calling me that. I'm not a pastor. For the last time. I don't need a title. You want to give me a title? My title is MOG, Man of God. That's who I am. I don't need to be in no church. I don't need to have a robe on, or none of that type of stuff. I am a man of God. And so the Most High God, the Spirit of God is in me, and that's what people feel when they see me. It's the Spirit of the Most High God. God's presence that comes from prayer, that comes from devotion to God. And yes, we're going to talk about that too, by the way. I got a whole 2-3 hour banger coming on the prophet Daniel, the Hebrew prophet Daniel. I got stuff coming for you. Stay tuned. Walk with me. We're going somewhere with this. In no more 5-minute videos, I'm not doing it for a while. I'm dropping straight bangers. 1 hour, 2 hour knowledge, game, the truth. And the truth is, the media often paints a very bad picture of black people, especially black men. Keep it moving. You know the Portland Trail Blazers? Your basketball team, for all of us who like basketball, like myself, I love basketball, the NBA, NFL, very talented men, provide a lot of inspiration for us in our daily lives, and nothing wrong with that. But what we learn, and I know this is making you uncomfortable. Now, I got about another hour, so I'm going to take my time. I'm going to take my time and park right here. Here's what we learn from players in the NBA, as well as the NFL, as well as black celebrities. They teach us something about being black in America, and I'll get there in a second. Let me read this first, though. Let's talk about the experience of some of the players for the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, to get to the NBA, you are extremely talented. Millions of boys play basketball. I was one of them. I ain't in the NBA, okay? Okay. Nowhere near. I played college basketball, Division II. I did pretty good at that level. But to get to the NBA, you have to be extremely talented, disciplined, dedicated. Something I learned as a little boy playing Pop Warner football. Desire, determination, dedication. If you are at this level, you have desire, you have determination, and you have dedication. Can't take it from these guys. So even though a lot of these guys, very talented, many cases, college educated men, character, here is the perception some of the residents, the white residents in Portland, have of their beloved Trailblazers. She says, this is a story that this is a conversation that Dr. Joy had with one of her white neighbors. Dr. Joy is a successful African-American woman who wrote this book, and she has a nice home in Portland in a pretty wealthy, predominantly white neighborhood. They were surprised she was over there, but by her living there, she was able to see firsthand what the perception was of some of the residents concerning the players for the Portland Trail Blazers who had homes in that area. She says, Northeast Portland, the area of Portland known at one point for its poverty, and the area which had housed the largest number of African Americans. Without even listening to my answer, she stated that she lived in this affluent suburb of Portland. She went on to assert, of course, you know where this is at. That's the place where all the Blazers basketball players go to live before they get kicked out. Listen to this. She was referring, of course, to the Trailblazers basketball players, most of whom are black and many of whom have settled in exclusive, wealthy, white suburbs of Lake City, where they were unwelcome. Right? Right. Yeah, listen to this. When they were unwelcomed into the relief of the legitimate, in their mind, legitimate white residents, only temporary. So This is what they think about. The players that sit in the stands cheering, woo! Don't their basketball. They sit there cheering and yelling and going to all these games, eating popcorn, and these are our guys. But what they really think about them is, you are still a black man. And I know you only live in this community for a few years. So, this brings me to my point. What black celebrities teach us about America. Money cannot unblack you. Just like Gilda the Kid says, money can't unlame a lame. Very profound statement in my opinion. If you're lame, you're lame. If you're weak, you're weak. Just like money cannot unlame a lame, money cannot unblack you. What I mean by unblack you? I don't care how much money you got, you are still seen by many people in this country as a black person that should be treated as and seen as a second-class citizen. So money cannot change that. You're still seen as a black man. Ask Terrell Owens about that. For those who don't know, Terrell Owens is a retired football player who played, very good player. I don't know if he's a Hall of Fame or not. He might be, will be one day. Excellent wide receiver. Terrell Owens, very likable person, very likable personality, right? And has been for many years. It was a video online from recently on social media circulating where he was being followed by a white woman. And she accused him of speeding or driving too fast as if she's the police or whatever, which is weird. The police get there and she creates this whole scene and she starts crying. And you notice what they do when they realize they're like a fool now. Now you want to start crying. You want to use tears to deceive people. And she says to Terrell Owens, "You are a black man talking to a white woman in America." This is what she says to him from the police officer. Showed her whole hand. What was she saying? She was basically saying, "I don't care how much money you got, nigga. Huh. I'm a white woman and you are a black man. Stay in your place in this country." And this is the experience. And this is for some of you men too who have a white woman. Now I know you think you're real man. Now for you guys who got your snow bunny. Some of you guys. Let me talk to you for a second. I need a whole hour to talk to you. Let me say this. Just because you have a relationship with a white woman does not mean she has a good opinion of black men. Let me go ahead and put that out there. Just because you have your white woman, sir, and that's your business, you can have whatever you want. I would never do it personally, me. That's your business. But just because you have a white woman and she likes you personally does not mean she has a good opinion of me or other black men or your mama for that matter or even your grandma for that matter. I know firsthand a guy who I was, let's just say, attempting to have a friendship with. He's a black man, he's African, engineer, and he had a white wife. And just from going to his house a few times for dinner with my wife and his family, it became crystal clear to me that this woman had limited respect for her husband, for me, and for my wife. That was obvious to me. So just because you marry a white woman, that don't mean she respects you, or your family, or your mama for that matter. That was crystal clear to me. And sometimes they marry you guys because some of you are still weak mentally. And this isn't to say that every black man with a white woman is weak mentally. I'm not saying that. Don't misunderstand my point. Why are you with that white woman? Are you with her because you really love her? If so, great. God bless you. Or are you with her to have this vacation from your blackness? So you can't take the heat of being with a black woman and having black kids and being seen by the whole world as an entire black unit. Because that's a powerful image, by the way. And so some of you guys, not all of you, some of you, you go that route to duck the energy that comes with being with a black woman. When a black man goes into an establishment with a black woman, it creates, people feel that energy. They feel it. People are staring at you, watching you. And so some of you go that route to dodge that energy, to be accepted. Some of you want to be accepted so bad by the majority culture that you will do whatever it takes. And so you do that, that's your choice. Cool. If you do that, fine, go that route, but don't come complaining to me. Don't come to me complaining, as some of you have in private, talking about how her brother disrespects you. You got yourself into the mess, bro. That comes with that. You come to me now talking about how the Thanksgiving is kind of awkward and uncomfortable. They ask you how much money you got. Can you really take care of their sister? And now you're going through that now. And their perception of you is coming out. Now you realize this is uncomfortable. So I'm not telling you not to do that. But I'm telling you, if you go that route, understand what you're getting yourself into. Understand that you are jumping into a 400-year history of experiences, and you got to be ready for that. That's all I got to say to you. But that's something that's a brief assessment. That type of conversation requires probably another hour or 2 live, to be honest. I would probably take 2 more hours to really explain that. Now, let's talk about respect, black youth, disrespect. Respect, black youth, and disrespect. A matter of respect. Often black men are asked the question, why are you so angry? We're seen as the angry, black man, right? Why are you so angry? This is a fairly common question by white people to African Americans, men and women. You know, the strong black woman. You know, the angry black woman. That's a myth. Woman's not angry, she's hurting. She's by herself, she's alone. Go both ways, right? For a long time, I was puzzled by the statements white people made about how intimidating, aggressive, threatening, and intense black people are as a group. Of course, was included in their assessment and as such endeavored to explore the question. While I don't consider myself particularly angry, I have on some occasions been described and almost always by someone white as being angry. I don't know if in general the average black person has more or less anger than whites, Hispanics or Asians, or any other group. Or if whites simply have heightened feelings of guilt that contribute to their perception. In truth, it matters little whether or not we are angrier than anyone else. What does matter is that a lot of this anger, and there is a lot of it to be angry about. What matters even more is what we do with anger. Before we look at ways our past has affected how we experience and express anger, we first need to look at and to understand what often lies at the core of our angry feelings, and that is disrespect. Boom. Right? I thought that was a powerful piece of this message. We are often the targets of disrespect. So it's not so much that black men are angry. It's not so much that black women are angry or black children. Black people are consistently being devalued, dehumanized, disrespected. We are consistently being seen as less than. And when you're consistently experiencing that, it's only a matter of time before you respond in anger. It's only a matter of time before you respond in disgust. And so it's not so much that we are angry or angry than others. It is really a matter of being disrespected, right? Every person deserves a level of respect and a level of humanity, being treated like a human, being treated like another person, a regular person, a human being. And when that's removed and you're constantly being told, sometimes indirectly and sometimes very directly, you are less than, you are unintelligent, flat out sometimes you're stupid, you're ugly. If you're consistently being told that by other people, what do you think would be the natural response? Now, with all this being said, let's talk about this here too, before I get into my next part of this. What stands between a disrespected African American and the source of disrespect is almost 400 years of history. 4 centuries of being the targets of humiliation and abuse. A history of racial conflict, inequality, and contempt accumulates into a moment that few people not of this culture could comprehend, let alone predict. So when we talk about the experience of African Americans, we are not talking about a 20-year process. We are not talking about a 40-year process. We are talking about an over 400-year process. Systems, redlining, programming, indoctrination, experience, deaths, murders, all these things that have happened to us collectively over 400 years. That cannot happen without a natural response to that. Now, with all that being said, and this leads me to really, in my opinion, a very powerful part of this book. And that is, what do we do about it? Right? Now that I have clearly laid out so many things, and by the way, I understand this, some of this still needs to be defined. I made some statements that need to be clearly defined on a deeper level. And again, one more time for clarity, this is one conversation among others. This won't be the last conversation we have about this. This is just one conversation. This has to be dealt with one way or the other. So she presents about 12 to 14 practical solutions, right? Now, before I get into the solutions, let's talk about what often happens, unfortunately, to us. Many of us just crash out. Let's talk about it. Look at the news, look at social media. Many of us just turn on each other, beat somebody up, shoot at somebody. You know, a lot of us struggle with mental illness, jealousy, self-hatred. A lot of us just crash out. You know what I mean? And that burden of being black in America, we all respond to it one way or another. You know, it's kind of like there cannot be a neutral response to it. It's impossible. This experience requires us to respond one way or the other. You see? And some of us, we just flat out crash out. Right? We crash out. Hurting each other. Jealousy, sabotage. A lot of people, you see, you have to understand, a lot of black people become haters. Some of you watch this video, you may be a hater. Some of you see this later, tomorrow. You have this hatred for the black people. And if you see them doing well or get money, this is why rappers get killed in their own hometown, by the way. Because they're surrounded by all these, excuse my language, hating niggas. Right? There's a difference between African American and a hating nigga. That want to kill you, that don't like you doing well. Happened to a rapper today. Rest in peace. I forget the rapper's name. Never heard of him before. He's somewhere at a restaurant with his girl eating, having a good time. Somebody comes there, rounds him, shoots him, and kills him. I mean, we're just constantly crashing out, burning. You know, shooting each other. Trying to take somebody's woman. You know, jealous-hearted. Lying on folks. These women backdooring men. Then you escape all of that BS and get you a job, and you think you're safe now, and now you're at the job with all these older player-hating black people. I'm talking about what I know from experience. So I climb up out the gang, leave that gym, dust myself off as I thought at least, right? Go to college, get me a job, and now I'm here at this job with all these jealous, hateful, in some cases, mentally ill, older black people. You see, there's two sides to the game. The same people who tell you you're lazy and you're unproductive and you don't know what you're doing will be the same black people who will try to sabotage you, who will become jealous of your success, who will go to your boss, in many cases the white man, and talk behind your back. Oh, I know all about our people. I am very well versed in black people. I wouldn't say I got a PhD, but I got a master's degree in understanding black folks. I've talked about black people from the ghetto, to the church, to the workforce. I've talked about it. And a lot of us are hateful, man. Jealous, petty. Let's talk about it. Small-minded. Just, in some cases, I'm going to be honest, just goofy. Goofy. I mean, you see what's going on. And rather than get a backbone and deal with it and address it, we much rather hide and think everything's a game. We want to play all the time. We don't want to deal with our harsh realities like mature adults and do something about it. All we care about, a lot of us, is money. That's it. As long as someone got money, you don't care how to get it. You don't care if they are a righteous person or unrighteous person. A lot of us, as long as somebody got some blue faces in their pocket, you rock with them. That's all we care about. And that's the problem. So this being said, she gave some practical solutions in closing as to how do we deal with this. She says, first of all, we have to recognize that we have an uncommon strength. We have an uncommon strength. She says, yes, we have still managed to rise. In spite of our past, we have made strides. We are a people of uncommon strength and fortitude. Our growth, though it has been slow and stunted, 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. So the first point here is this. I mentioned the negative first for a reason, because I wanted to put that out there. There's some bad, but the flip side of the coin is this. It's 2 sides to the game. All of us are not mentally ill. All of us are not jealous. All of us are not on drugs. There are some of us who are just strong, hardworking, productive, righteous men and women. That's the truth. So you have to understand that we are strong people. We have been through some of the hardest things in human history. And we still have the strength to smile, to keep our heads up, to straighten our backs, to get up each day and to figure things out. So we have to understand the uncommon strength that our ancestors as well as we have. And that goes to having a knowledge of yourself. You got to have knowledge of yourself. That's why it's important to know your history. Know your history. I know from study that we have lawyers. Thurgood Marshall. We have had world leaders. Malcolm X, Dr. King, Marcus Garvey. We've had inventors. We have had leaders. People who were good at writing poetry. Langston Hughes. Actors, entertainers. Politicians. Businessmen. So I know from my study of African American history that we are capable of doing what anyone else does. That's what history has taught me. So if you want to be a lawyer, we're capable of doing that. If you want to be a doctor, you are capable of doing that. In spite of the obstacles. Now, we have to talk about the obstacles. We have to deal with their reality, but we cannot allow their reality to break our spirit in a way where we don't even try. And I'm going to get to that in a second too. Because some of us, we just throw the towel and give up. And that pressure breaks you. Don't let that pressure break you. Let that pressure motivate you and push you to become this great person. And a part of that is education. Education, it's a lot deeper than going to school. Malcolm X never went to school, but he was a very well-educated man. So education is not just having a college degree. You can go to school and still be dumb. Sorry, you can't. She says that any level of healing first requires an accurate assessment of the damage as it has been impacted by the individual, the family, the community, and society. Together, our lived experiences in formal education help us to achieve our goals and potential. We as individuals must consistently reach higher and live better by taking advantage of the lived experiences within our communities and the opportunities afforded to us by higher education. So that is an option. Education is not the only solution. I'll put that out there. Because this is something that Malcolm X also discovered in the 60s. No one cares how smart you are, you're still seen as a black person. He was asked by a person once in a conversation, they said, Malcolm X, what do they call a black man who has a PhD? Malcolm X thought about it and said, oh, that's easy, a nigger. So, Jay-Z pointed that out too in the song, The Story of OJ. You've heard that song, The Story of OJ by Jay-Z, right? Hip hop. We're going to talk about hip hop too over here too as well. If you don't like hip hop, you probably shouldn't follow me. Because I read Jay-Z's book, Decoded, and I will be doing a live on that one as well. A very powerful and impactful message on the culture of hip hop and the language of hip hop. We're going there too. So, in his song, The Story of OJ, Jay-Z, what does he say? He says, rich nigga, poor nigga, field nigga, house nigga, still nigga. What was he saying? What was his message in that song? No matter who you are, whether you are dark skinned, whether you are light skinned, whether you are poor, or you are wealthy, you're still seen as a nigger by certain people in this country. That's the raw reality. So school don't change that. I got 3 degrees. Nobody care about that. I got 3 earned degrees, brother. I'm not no dummy. 3 earned degrees. I have a doctor in theology. You know what people say when they see me? A nigger. And I'm strong enough to understand reality. I'm not a fool. I understand that my years of study and learning means nothing to certain people. And that doesn't bother me, but I am intuitive enough to understand that. You see? Can't no degree save you. A piece of paper doesn't save you from the reality of being a black man in this country. So it's important to get that for yourself, to educate yourself, and to have some skills that are necessary to feed your family and others. That's essential, but that won't save you. You need the power of God. You need the power of the Most High. Yeshua, the Messiah, Jesus. That's one point. She also suggests that we stay in a room. What does she mean by stay in a room? This is what she means. You got to keep fighting. Now, I'm going to take a second and quote Umar Johnson for a second. Now, I don't agree with everything Umar Johnson says. That's not the point. But something he said that I agreed with, a lot of it, to be honest. I ain't saying I ain't cap with you for nobody. I ain't capping for nobody anymore. It's over. I'm just going to say this is who I am. So, he said that he studied for years in psychology, as we know. And he endured a lot of disrespect microaggression, and racism while pursuing his higher education. And he had to be quiet and kind of bite his tongue for years until he achieved that degree. That was my experience as well. All those years I was in school, I endured a lot of microaggression. See, this is the other side of racism no one talks about. The same people who tell you to stop selling drugs and stop doing stuff in the streets and stop gang banging and stop listening to rap music and all this old crazy stuff. Once you stop all that stuff and you do what they say you should do, you're still treated poorly as an unofficial second-class citizen. You will endure daily microaggression, humiliation, disrespect, and false humility, pretending to be your friend. And you endure that, or as I endured it, as others have, for the purpose of learning. You say, okay, what are you talking about? It doesn't matter. Even when you're pursuing this knowledge and education, you'll be treated poorly. But you're going to have to be strong enough to stay in a room. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to impart to you. If you're trying to better yourself, black man, guess what? You will be fought every step of the way. Black woman, I'm talking to you. Black woman, black man, you will be fought every step of the way. And you're going to have to be strong enough to not quit. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Whether that be college, whether that be going to school to learn a trade, whether that be a job, you're going to have to be strong enough to stay in a room. In other words, as we like to say in our culture a lot, you can't fumble the bag. You cannot fumble your bag by quitting. She says at her lectures, I have always admonished people from wherever community that I happen to be in to stay in a room. Meaning that no matter how difficult or intense things may seem, don't give up by leaving. This is what happens to many of us. We allow the pressure, the disrespect, and the dishonor to break our spirit, and then we quit before we even achieve any of our goals. So my message to you from that perspective, in terms of solution, because we're all talking about what are solutions. One solution is something called perseverance. You got to hang in there. You got to stay in there and continue to press forward. Another solution, and this is key. This is something that I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't really understand until maybe, on some level, maybe 5-6 years ago, and that is the importance of diet. As African Americans, we often use food as an escape from our misery. So our way of dealing with the pressures to come our way, a lot of us, we like to hide behind food, drugs, alcohol, and sex. Of which not many are bad. Food is not necessarily bad, of course. Sex is not bad. But when we do it in a way where it is hurting us, where we're eating the wrong types of foods consistently, and simply put, a part of our growth and development is to discipline ourselves in our diet. I stop drinking pops. I don't eat certain things. I don't eat fast food every day. I try to get a gallon of water a day. I try to get to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. So a part of our healing is, in other words, no matter how bad you're treated, you have control over your diet. Right? That's what I'm trying to say. You have control over what you feed your mind. No matter how bad you are treated, no one can make you use drugs. No one can make you eat poor food. No one can stop you from picking up a book like this and reading it and discussing it for 2 hours. That's a decision you can make. So though we are limited in some of our resources and we are limited in some of the things we have access to, since that's the case, what we have to do is to really govern ourselves accordingly. Simply put, we got to tighten up. We got to tighten up. You a black man, you can't be out here off your script, bro. I'm going to talk to you real. We can't be out here drunk. We can't be out here messing with 5 women. We can't be out here drinking every day, getting high, eating anything. We need to be militant. We need to be on our game. Thinking, reflecting, spending time in prayer, eating the right foods, keeping our bodies physically fit. I did a physical assessment. I'm not trying to brag about this, but the person training at the gym, he was surprised the shape I was in, because he knew I was older than him. He said, man, that's crazy, man. He said, your numbers look just like mine. And this guy was 10 years younger than me. Why? Discipline, brother. I discipline myself. I'm sitting here with 10.9% body fat, almost down to 10% body fat. That's discipline. So I understand the pressures come my way. I deal with that pressure. I deal with that embarrassment, sometimes humiliation, by disciplining myself. So I cannot control what you do, but I can control what I do. I can't control how you look at me. I can't control your perception. Matter of fact, I don't really care about your perception, to be honest, because your perception is not my reality. But what I can do is discipline myself in what I eat. I can discipline myself by going to the gym every day. I can discipline myself by working every day. I can discipline myself by keeping my pants zipped up, not fapping to you know what. Making a decision to discipline myself and practice retention. Making decisions to read and to reflect and to journal. And everything I've been teaching you guys for almost 3 years now. What I teach you is what I live. What I teach you guys is what I have lived for years. So I can't control others, but I can control and discipline and govern myself accordingly. And that's what you have power over. You have power over yourself. Don't never forget that. Know your worth. That's another point. Know your worth. Know your worth. Do not let others devalue you. This is an important point in the book. She says, beliefs are powerful in terms of building your self-esteem. Remember our discussion. Beliefs strongly influence how we think and feel and behave. And their influence can be negative or positive. When people have negative beliefs about their value and skills, they will often self-sabotage, right? That's why it's so important to be confident. The scripture says this: cast not thy confidence behind thee, for in keeping it is great reward. When you have confidence, it will help you to go forward and having a good self-esteem. That's so important. Confidence is important if you want to endure or to overcome the post-traumatic slave syndrome. Managing stress. This is a big one. Managing stress. Doctors have actually found a stress hormone that clouds our ability to be rational. Doctors have actually found a stress hormone that clouds our ability to be rational. So what happens is, as a black person, you can get so stressed out in this country that you get to a place, appreciate that, where you're so stressed that you cannot even make rational decisions. So if we're going to make it, we have to learn how to manage stress. And I'll talk about a few of them already. Working out, okay? Being sexually disciplined, reading, meditation, journaling. These can be all very powerful disciplines in managing the stress that will inevitably come your way as a black person in this country. So that's a huge point. She also says it's important to know our history. I've kind of already touched on this a little bit, but I'll touch on this a little bit more. Knowing our history is very important. She says, Randall Robinson has said that the worst thing that you could take from a people is their memory of themselves. That's powerful. That's heavy. Randall Robinson has said that the worst thing that you could take from a people is their memory of themselves. If you want to have low self-worth, low self-esteem, no confidence in yourself, that comes when you don't know yourself and when you don't know what you're capable of. So if we want to heal, a part of our healing is having an appreciation and a understanding and knowledge of our history. Here's why it's important. We live in a culture now where we don't respect our superiors. The culture has been created where if someone is older than you, you look down on them. We look at older men as just an old nigger. And that's why we're so messed up as a race. We have no respect for our history. We have no respect for our culture, what we have done. And this sickness that is pride and really a strong spirit of dishonor. That's what it is. We are very disrespectful to each other. Disrespectful. And that dishonor keeps you from a very powerful part of your growth and process in life. So if we want to go forward, we have to have a knowledge, but also an appreciation of our history, those before us. Simply put, if someone has earned respect, give them their respect. They earned it. She says, if we are to become healthy, our deep commitment to God, spirituality, and religion will be one of our primary building blocks. If we want to go forward, you know what? We're after this. Deeply rooted in spirituality. I'm a firm believer. Prayer, studying the Bible, fasting, meditation, prayer in the spirit, spiritual warfare. We're going to talk about all that stuff too, by the way. That's coming too as well. That's coming. Stay tuned. If we're going to make it, we have to have a deep connection to the Most High God. That's huge. That gives you strength. That gives you purpose. That gives you perspective. That will give you direction in life, guidance. You know, I've said it before. I'll say it again. The first connection we should make is to God. Understanding, connecting to the Most High God should be first. That's the first step. And once we begin to develop that and to cultivate that, the next step is to figure out what your purpose is as a man. And when you get close to God first and your purpose second, then you can bring a woman into your life. If you don't know God and if you have no purpose, you have no reason for a woman. Besides one sex, that ain't enough. The proper order, in my worldview, is the Most High first. You figure out what you're on earth to do, and you develop that. You work hard, you improve yourself, you add value to yourself and to others. And once you've done that, then you can be blessed with a woman, which is a gift. A woman is not just some random. A woman is a gift from God. And many of you guys really misunderstand women. And the way you think about women now, if that's your perspective, you will always have problems with women. That's another topic too. We're going to talk about that one too. I got a lot of conversations for you guys. We're going to have a conversation about that one too. A lot of y'all, your perspective on women is just off. And that has to be adjusted if you ever hope to have a wife or daughters and actually connect with them on a healthy level. But we don't want that. All we want to do is have sex. Somebody said, how can we understand female nature? Talk to a woman. That's one way out. Listen to them as opposed to making an assumption. How do you understand anybody's nature? You study them. You ask questions. You attempt to understand versus having a preconceived idea, a notion, or bias. But that question obviously requires several videos, as you would know. So you know your history. And in conclusion, what has worked overall in helping African American people? What has worked and helped overall in helping African American people? Here's what the data has gathered and revealed are the elements and programs that have been successful in working with African American people. Having a champion supporter, building strong relationships, culturally relevant curriculum and materials, positive racial and ethnic identity and development, starting work when they were young, parental and family involvement, commitment and support of administrators and leaders, community involvement, programs consistently and longevity, providing achievement opportunities or wins for participants, and follow-up and ongoing evaluation. These have been some of the concrete solutions that have been used or utilized for decades, in some cases centuries, in helping African American people. So that is my talk, or my 2-hour lecture on the post-traumatic slave syndrome, an excellent book written by Dr. Joy. This is your brother Iron Soul. Take care. Be blessed. Appreciate that, King Jordan. Appreciate that, brother. Take care, guys. I am out.